Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, which is all about how to show aging from a new perspective. It's wonderful to see so many people turn out for the session today, including, I'm told, many photographers. So thank you very much for coming along to hear about this really important topic, and it's great to be in such creative company. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Emma Twining, Director of Communications and Policy here at Aging Better. We're an organisation committed to trying to make later life better for everyone. And one of our key focuses is tackling ageism and trying to shift this negative societal narrative we have around ageing, which is bad for us all, frankly. I'm joined today by speakers, including Dora Buckle, our Digital Marketing Officer here at Aging Better. And she's leading a lot of the work that we're doing at Aging Better around our image library and inclusive imagery. We've got Sophie Basilovich, who is Senior Content Executive at Alamy. They are a global stock image library, and Sophie's going to tell you a bit more about good practice in taking and tagging photos, as well as the photo competition that we're doing together, which I hope many of you here will be keen to enter. And then we have Alex Rotas, who is challenging stereotypes about ageing through her fantastic photography. I'm really delighted to have Alex here to talk to us today about her really beautiful work, which you will see more of later. So some quick housekeeping notes from me before we start. We're streaming this session live across our social media channels. The webinar is going to be available to view on demand immediately after we've finished, so you can watch again, share with your networks. All attendees today are in listen-only mode, so if you have questions for the panel, please post these in the Q&A box, which you'll find in the control ribbon at the top or the bottom of your screen. You're welcome to use the chat box for any comments or responses you have, and it would be really lovely actually if you wanted to introduce yourself as you come onto the webinar today. Tell us a bit more about who you are and your work and why you're here. And to say also, for those of you who need it, we have closed captions which are available to everyone. They're essentially subtitles, if you don't know what closed captions are, so they can be turned on by pressing the CC button in the control ribbon on your screen. So in today's webinar, you're going to hear from experts discussing how you can capture the diversity of old age through photography with lots of practical hints and tips. And that really has been the driving purpose of Aging Better's Age Positive Image Library, which we're incredibly proud of, and is the first free image library containing positive and realistic images of people in older age groups. The library has been hugely successful. It's used by lots of different organisations, including journalists in the media, marketers, charities, governments, and other public bodies. And we're adding to the collection constantly and looking for new ways to inspire those around us and to inspire different types of photography. So that's why we've joined forces with Alamy to run a photo competition for photographers to challenge old age stereotypes. The competition runs until the 31st of March, and you can enter via the Alamy website. And Sophie from Alamy will tell us a little bit more about that later. And just before I hand over to our first speaker, I just wanted to say that if you are interested in challenging ageism in society, we'd love for you to sign up to be part of our age-friendly movement. So that is going to include a big public-facing campaign to challenge ageist attitudes later this year. By signing up, you'll receive a monthly newsletter and you'll hear about ways you can get involved in the campaign, and we'd love to have you with us. I think colleagues are going to post the link to that in the chats if you want to do that. So that is enough from me. I will introduce our first speaker. It's Dora Buckle, our Digital Marketing Officer at Centre for Aging Better. Dora is going to talk about the harms of ageism in photos and why age-positive imagery is so important.
Thanks for the introduction, Emma. I'm going to attempt to share my screen the right way around. So bear with me a second. Okay. Right. Emma, can you see the notes or is it the PowerPoint?
I can see the notes as well, Doria.
Okay, I will try and change that. The taskbar is
Display.
over the...
Just go into the display settings and then swap presenter view.
The taskbar is over the... Oh, there we go. there. Is that right?
That's
Yes,
right.
all good.
Okay, great. Apologies about that. And yeah, thanks for the introduction, Emma. As you mentioned, my name is Dora and I'm the Digital Marketing Officer at the Centre for Ageing Better. So one of the projects that we've done in relation to our work to challenge ageism is our Age Positive Image Library, which I manage, I do a lot of work on, and I'll be talking about today. So firstly, we need to think about are current images inclusive? So are the photos used in the UK across different sectors like media, advertising and charities, are they representative and are they inclusive when it comes to age? So as part of our work looking into UK's attitudes towards ageing, we've published several reports and done extensive research into how imagery can affect how people perceive getting older. So our research found that within the print media especially, older people are represented as more of a burden than a benefit and have been described as frail non-contributors to society. It also showed that there's a real lack of images of older people in general, but particularly older women and disabled older people. So the two examples included here are the stereotypes typically found. So extremes of either affluent and remarkable older people doing things like skydiving or people who are reduced to just their hands, and which is quite dehumanizing. Here are some more examples of images that appear in the media regularly and some of the first results in Google and image library searches when you type in older people. So as you can see, unfortunately, we're highly reliant on outdated and negative stereotypes. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, I'm sure we've all seen the wrinkly hands photo accompanying an article talking about older people, as well as the icon of an older person using a walking stick. So these depictions reinforce the notion that older people are disempowered with little to no agency of their own. So why is all of this important? Images undeniably contribute to how we feel about aging. They set the tone of what we associate about later life, from the news articles that we read about aging to the adverts we see about getting older. So overall, we're pretty downbeat about later life and getting older. So this slide shows a piece of research Ipsos conducted with only a third of people in the UK saying that they were looking forward to older age. So the way we feel about aging really matters. It affects our own actions and behaviour, and as well as how we interact with older people and how we feel about older people. So the power of images in photography is a cycle. So negative stereotypes reinforce negative societal narratives. For instance, in focus group discussions in our research, younger age groups viewed later life as something to be feared, with an increased likelihood of loneliness. And as we know, it's not necessarily that older people aren't lonely, as many are. It's more about the stereotype being one of the few visual representations of older people that we see, so that it becomes dominant in people's minds. And we know that loneliness isn't just reserved for over 65s. In fact, people at younger ages are just as likely to experience it. So to counter stereotypes like this, we need more photos of older people being adventurous, and that can be small or large. So that breaks stereotypes of passiveness or people meeting society's expectations of them. So older age is still a point of life where you're experiencing new things like at any other point. So like all age groups, those aged 50 plus are not a homogenous group of people. So we need more nuanced images that reflect this diversity of getting older. So we know that there's a problem with images not being positive or challenging stereotypes when it comes to age, but what have we at Ageing Better done about it? In January of 2021, we created a free public image library. So now it contains over 2,000 photos and icons that represent people aged 50 plus, and they're available for use by any person or organisation. The process involved commissioning photographers and working with them on many different briefs. So an important part of our image library is that we don't use models wherever possible. These are volunteers sharing their lived experience. And we're also open to people giving us feedback about how they want to be portrayed. We've published a guide on using the image library as well as capturing your own age-positive images, but I'll go into more detail about those points now. So firstly, it's important to use realistic portrayals. So we don't want to use any photos that unrealistically positive, but also unrealistically negative. So obviously we want the library to be positive to challenge those negative stereotypes around loneliness and wrinkly hands that I talked about earlier, but it also needs to be realistic. So for instance, if someone did need a walking aid, we want the photos to include that. If someone was exercising, we don't want it to seem completely effortless because that's not natural. And not everyone has to be smiling all the time, especially if the photos depict a serious situation. So photographs, if done properly, have room for those nuances. Secondly, don't ignore diversity. So it was very important to us from the beginning to depict a diverse range of people to ensure an accurate representation of the population. So obviously this encompasses age, but we also want to be inclusive around gender, race and ethnicity, religion, disability, sexual orientation, and geography. Third, consider the context. So imagery like verbal and written language can strongly influence our attitudes and views. So when selecting imagery for your campaign or for your website, think about the context and what your photo is being used to portray or to illustrate. So be careful not to dehumanize or make insinuations with your choice of image when accompanying a news piece or blog article, for example. And finally, be open-minded. So, it's very much a learning process. No organization or photographer or person is perfect, and inevitably mistakes will be made. So keep an open mind, try and learn from others, and be open to criticism. So we've also worked alongside an organisation called Get Yourself Active, which are a part of Disability Rights UK. And we've produced a set of sort of do's and don'ts for capturing disability and age-positive images. And these are some of my favourites. So allowing participants input into how they'd like to be photographed is really important, like having a dialogue with them. Making everyone feel as happy and comfortable as possible. So the more candid shots, the better. And when someone's comfortable on a photo shoot, obviously that comes across in the photos themselves. And then take photographs around the range of scenarios around getting active, or like before, if there's an event, take photos of the setup and afterwards and stuff like that. Another one from this collection was not portraying disabled people getting active in dishonest ways. So similar to my point about wanting the photos to be realistic. So if someone does require assistance, then don't hide that, basically. So the story so far, our age-positive image library has been a really successful project for us. So we've had over 100,000 downloads of the images, and I think that positive response just shows how much appetite there is for age-positive images that reflect a reality that's more in line with people's experiences of getting older. Also, since launching the library, we've partnered with several stock image libraries, including Pexels, Unsplash, and the Noun Project. And we're very excited to be working with Alamy on this photography competition as well. We've been releasing more themed collections. So we've done a collection of photos of older LGBTQ+ people. We worked with Get Yourself Active and released photos of older and disabled people. And next week, we'll be releasing a large new collection of over 500 photos. So watch this space for next week. So we want to sort of use this success to grow the library even more, offer more images, change how media use photos, and normalise the contributions of older people across society. We hope that these photos can be useful resources for people. So I really believe that they can help to support a more nuanced, positive, and realistic dialogue about getting older. All of the photos used in this presentation are part of our image library, and you can view and download 2,000 more by accessing the library on the Aging Better website. Thanks for listening, and if you want to get in touch, my email is on there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dora. Some great advice there, and absolutely agree. The important thing is that we see a range of people and experiences of getting older to counter those stereotypes we so commonly see. And older age groups, of course, are only getting more diverse, so our photography and the images we see in society should reflect that. Just a reminder to people to post your questions in the Q&A box if you have any questions for Dora or for any of the panel. I'm now going to introduce Sophie Basilovic from Alamy. She's going to talk about the photo competition that we're running together, tagging and inclusive captions, and general photography good practice. So over to you, Sophie.
Thank you, Emma. Okay, this is great. So hi everyone, welcome to this part of the talk. My name is Sophie. I work with the content team at Alamy as Senior Content Executive. I work with all our agencies and contributors to keep on top of what's missing in our collection, including any current image trends. I'm going to run through a little more about Alamy and then give you some tips about best practice in terms of captioning and keywording, and also talk a little about how to pass quality control when uploading your photos to the Alamy site. So as an introduction, who are Alamy? So we're a stock photo agency. We sell images to customers around the world, including publishers, designers, marketers, and ad agencies. And since starting the company in 1999, we've paid out $200 million worth of royalties to photographers. Our collection contains all genres of photography, such as live news, sports, entertainment, wildlife, travel, commercial lifestyle, and so on. The current collection stands at over 310 million images, and we work with around 700 agencies that sell their work with us. We've got offices in the UK, the USA, India, and Australia, and serve over 100,000 picture buyers worldwide. We've got 150,000 images added every day to the site by thousands of photographers from around the world, and it's our commitment to continue to be the world's most diverse stock photo collection. This means we actively search for photographers and content that we can use to promote and encourage all to use more inclusive imagery in their products. We want to help others to change their perceptions and avoid the traditional stereotypical content that you may have previously seen in advertising and products. So at Alamy, we pride ourselves on having the most diverse range of content in the business. From travel companies, publishers, and advertising agencies, our customers are always providing feedback about current and future trends of using imagery in their own industries. Together with our own research on better representation in photography, it means that we're always ahead of the game in providing the best and most up-to-date images for our customers' needs. We're constantly seeking to fill the content gaps based on working closely with our customers, and we found that they want not only more diverse content in general, but also specifically better representation of the older age group. They want to be able to use images that show more truthful depictions of this generation in more wide-ranging situations than ever before. For example, showing seniors on holiday in recognizable locations or enjoying leisure time in real-life settings with multi-generational families. So because this type of image is and high demand, it's a great time to be thinking about how you can contribute your photography and understanding of the 50+ age group to this competition and cause. We also sell images to newspapers, magazines, design companies, and corporate marketing, and it's worthwhile looking closely at the images that you see in the media, such as in advertising, and use this as a springboard to think about how older generations could be better represented in a more realistic way using your own photographic style. And these should all give you ideas about what to shoot and help the direction and style you can take for entering your images into this competition. So here are some specific examples that we have on the Alamy site, which show the types of people, situations, activities, and poses that you can think about incorporating in your photography for this competition. We find that images like these are the most popular with our customers. They're all model released. The people are from different backgrounds, showing diversity, and it looks as though they've been taken in real life locations, adding to the authenticity of the pictures. They also show people doing real things with real interactions, suggesting real life situations. One of the things we find is that many customers in general prefer people in the photos to not be looking straight towards the camera. However, this doesn't mean you should discount completely a portrait image with someone looking at the camera, which sometimes our customers use to make a strong statement on their products to engage with their audience in a more powerful and direct way. The key really is to show authenticity in the situations and with the people in your photography. Remember, though, that whatever your photographic style and how you want to portray your subject, it should be within the context of one of the 3 categories we've specified for the competition, as showing either underrepresented communities, leisure activities, or multi-generational people. So how will a customer find your images when there are 310 million images in our library? Alamy works essentially as a giant search engine. It's a bit like Google in that when you type in your search, our search engine goes off and then returns all the images with matching tags or matching keywords. So it means that the captions and tags you have behind your images are probably the most crucial factor for your success as a photographer. When tagging your photos, it's really important to be specific, literal, and conceptual. You could argue quite comfortably that the captions and tags are more important than the image itself. Good tagging will make the difference between making a sale and not making a sale. You can have the best collection of photography, but if you don't have the captions and tags attached to the images, those images will never be found. So this is what it looks like when you upload images to the site and how you can caption and tag your images. And this is our Alamy Image Manager tool, which is what we provide to all our photographers, where you can enter all the metadata on your images. So to get an image on sale, the minimum you're required to add is a caption and at least 5 tags or keywords. However, the more information you add, the more discoverable the image will be for our search engine, because there's more words to go and search for. Here's an example of an image we've highlighted that has someone walking in the mountains, and it's a good example of relevant tags. It's got women, senior, hiking, outdoors, portrait, and so on. These are the literal tags that are associated with this image. They're quite basic, which is fine. And if someone's doing an article about a senior woman walking in the mountains, this image has those words associated with it, so it'll appear in a relevant search. The conceptual tags are also very important, so think about the emotions and other concepts the image conveys. Words and phrases like well-being, mental health, active lifestyle, or possibly words like stamina and endurance. These concepts are associated with activities like walking in nature, and we want the customer that's doing an article on active lifestyle to see these images as well. The photographer in this case could also add the specific location, as this may also be relevant to a customer. And a couple of other things to mention is that our 2 biggest markets are in the UK and US. So if you're adding keywords, check that if there are American and English variations in spellings. So for a word like colour, it'd be advised to put in both spellings of the word. So this is a slightly different image where we've got this optional tab open now on the right-hand side, which is what you'd see. And you don't always need one to upload photos, but depending on the license you want the images to be sold for, you'd need a signed model release, and you'll need a signed model release as well if you want to enter the competition. We've got a model release template on the Alamy site, and you can download one there, but it's important that you get whoever appears in the photo to sign this. Once you have this and your images are uploaded in the image manager, you can go to the optional fields on the top left tab and fill in how many people are in the image, and then yes, if you have the signed form. You don't have to send the form to us, but as for all metadata, it should be filled in accurately. So I'm going to run through some of the more handy tips and advice about the do's and don'ts about captioning and tagging that you apply to your images. This will also include some guidance on inclusive captioning, as we're always looking to ensure that our images show diversity and are inclusive. So do use the caption to describe the image. This will be the first piece of information anyone will read about the image, and it needs to be as informative as possible. It should always detail who or what is in the image and what is happening. Do use people first language. This helps to eliminate any stereotypes and focuses on the person as an individual. For example, it's better to say person who has hearing loss rather than suffers from hearing loss. Do be accurate. Customers will assume details on the image to be true, such as place mentioned or the date this photo was taken, and they'll replicate this information on occasion for others to learn about. So this means you should also be thinking like a customer. Would the image that appears for the customer be relevant based on their search? You can add plurals as keywords, but would it be relevant? For example, if you have a lifestyle shot of a child playing on a swing, child is perfectly acceptable tag, but children is not. A customer searching for children will likely want to see just that, more than one child. And then moving on to some of the don'ts, don't include personal or sensitive data. These would be things that would identify the person that wouldn't normally be available to the public unless for legitimate reasons. So for example, where you might have personal data is identifying a celebrity at a red carpet event. Don't assume something about the subject. As mentioned, it's important to not mislead customers that would go against the idea of inclusive information. For example, if you aren't sure on an individual's ethnicity, don't add multiple tags to reflect this. If customers aren't able to have this information verified, they'll simply use another image where the information is clear and correct. Don't force words just to add more tags. It goes without saying, but you shouldn't be including tags that are of little or no relevance to the photo. And don't forget to add some concept keywords. Customers will sometimes not just search on literal terms, but also ideas such as mental health, active lifestyle. And drawing on from the example before, search not just senior women, but senior woman, active lifestyle. So we're going to move on now to some of the technical things relating to quality control that you need to be aware of when taking and uploading your images. So we don't reject imagery on the subject of the photos unless it's unsuitable, but we may reject images on technical images. We've got a range of slides here that show you the variety of images we have coming in. And as you can see from the bottom right image, there are some that contain movement that are deliberately soft in some areas. So these images wouldn't be failed for being soft. On the other hand, the image in the top right, we'd expect the eyes in that shot to be sharp. So depending on the subject and the photographer's intent, if they're slightly off focus or slightly soft, that's the type of image that may fail. But generally, if you can produce a technically sound image, the image will get onto the Alamy site and be available for sale. If the QC team find a technical error, it will fail and you'll be told why the images have failed and what faults were found. But if you do fail, don't worry, because you can always resubmit and you can correct the areas that we point out, or you can send us a different set of images. And at the end of the day, our QC team will always be looking to pass your images rather than fail them. So if they have been failed, don't take it personally. It's just that we found a technical area that you can either fix or decide to pick a different image and try again. We've also got a quality control guide within our contributor help pages, and I highly recommend downloading and saving this guide from the Alamy site. An extra benefit from downloading this is that if any of your future clients would be perfectly happy if you incorporate these checks into your personal workflow. And then finally, if you haven't already, you can register an account with us by visiting the Alamy site. All you need to do is go to alamy.com, and from there, click on the sign up button in the top right-hand corner and select sell images, and you'll be taken to the registration page. Once you've entered your information, you can get into your account and start uploading images. And don't forget, for this competition, you can also upload photos that have been taken since the 1st of June 2020. So you might already have some suitable photos in your collection already. So that sums up some of the best practices in terms of captioning, tagging, and technical qualities that you should be thinking about when uploading your photography for this competition. If you need help, please feel free to email us on contributors@alamy.com and we'll pick up and get back to you. You can also message us on Twitter and Instagram. And for more advice, you can go to our alamy.com/contributor, and there you'll find our contributor homepage that contains lots of information you'll need to know, which we recommend you explore. So I'll hand back to Emma now.
Thank you very much, Sophie. That's brilliant and fantastic to hear that there's increasing demand for photos of people in older age groups, which makes a lot of sense if you consider the growing part of the population that over 50s make up, and the fact that you know, there's sorts of spending power too. Over 50s, I think, are responsible for half of all household spend. So it makes a lot of sense from a commercial point of view that people are waking up to including older age groups in their ad campaigns. I would just like to remind everyone that if you've got questions, please do put them in the Q&A box, which you can access on the control ribbon. And to introduce Alex Rotas, who is going to talk to us about age-positive imagery and her experiences of being an older photographer herself. So welcome, Alex, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Emma. I'm going to put my clock on, but feel free to stop me if I overrun. So I'm going to just show you some of my images and talk through my images to try and explain what I've been trying to do. For the last 12 years, I've been photographing athletes in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 100s in an attempt to try and disrupt some of those dreary stereotypes that we've just been hearing about. And so I'll talk you through the kind of why I'm highlighting the images that I'm highlighting. So this is Irene Obira, who is 80. And in this image, she is creating a new world record in the women's 100 meters for her age group, which is 80 to 84. You can see on her bib that 80. In the world of competitive masters athletics and master sport, people compete in 5-year age bands. And the reason I like this photograph is because she looks empowered. She has clearly got a goal. Her eyes are fixed on that finish line. She looks joyful. She looks her age. I've been trying to get away from this notion that you can only look wonderful if you look younger than you are as you get older. So I always want to zero in on people's faces and show their age. And let's move on. Whoops. So this image, whoops, sorry. This image is another 80-year-old, and you can see she's moving fast. I was trying to disrupt this notion when I started 12 years ago. The preponderance of images of older people would have them looking immobile, passive, slumped in chairs. And so I was trying to demonstrate that there is also another picture to getting older. So you can see she's moving fast. This is a German athlete who in the picture, in this moment, is actually creating a new European record for the women's 100 meters. It was smashed 2 weeks later. And she again looks determined and focused. Her eyes have got a glint in them. She's focused on the finish line. She has goals. And she also, I think, looks her age. This is Earl Fee. He's a Canadian athlete. In this photo, in this competition, he's actually 2 months off his 90th birthday. So he's still competing in the 85 age group, but he's almost 90. And I think he highlights the possibility of having an upright posture as you get older. His stature is just wonderful. And again, his physicality is clear to see. His age is clear to see. You've got the age spots. You've got the wrinkles, you've got the white hair, but he looks magnificent, I think. I gave a talk to some primary school children, and I started off by asking them to show me how they imagine an old person would walk and stand, and they loved doing it. But what they showed was people hunched over, usually with a walking stick, and I said to them, "You're absolutely right. That's what people think getting old is all about." But then I showed them these pictures and I said, yes, some people do need sticks when they're older and some people do find it hard to get about, but a lot of people don't. And this is also part of the picture. And I think it was really just trying to create a more nuanced sense of aging that really motivated me, and to get away from this awful binary of sort of old age versus youth. The joyfulness, I think we've already mentioned this kind of notion that old people are depressed and lonely. So one of the wonderful things about photographing any sports event with older people is if you get near the finish line, you can't help but photograph moments of joy as people cross them. This is a youngster, Angela Copson, she's only 70, and she's just crossing the line she's a world record holder in the women's 10,000 meters and many other things too. And look at her joy. Look at her nails. She's had fun painting her nails. She's got a Union Jack on one of them. You can see her age. Look at her skin. That's what happens to our skin. It's happened to my skin. I don't look so muscular, but I've certainly got the crepey arms. And one of the wonderful things about photographing athletics, track and field athletes, is that they wear such skimpy kit that you get to see what the aging body is all about, both its musculature and its strength, and also its frailty and its age. Another moment of joy, another youngster, 70-year-old Ian Richards. He's a race walker. He's creating a new world record, which he knew because he could see the clock as he passed the finish line. And I was delighted to capture that moment. This is Charles Alley, also 70. And I enjoyed taking this photograph because I feel it's almost sort of like an iconic sports image. We're used to seeing sportsmen and women photographed from below, so they look statuesque. And I feel that from a distance, you think, oh yeah, it's just another sports person. And then you take a second look and you think, but it's an older person, look at the beard. And I think it's trying to get my people who look at the images to look again, to look twice and think twice about what aging is all about. Now, before I show you the next slide, the next image, I want you just to imagine what a woman in her mid-70s might look like doing the high jump. Got a picture? Well, this is indeed a woman in her mid-70s doing the high jump, and probably not how you might have imagined. So again, I really like disrupting people's stereotypes and preconceptions. My own too, I have to say, when I first started doing this work. Can I ask you to imagine now a man in his 80s doing the hurdles? And here is a man in his 80s competing in the hurdles, a British athlete. And I just love to show the agility, the fluid movement, the lightness, everything you perhaps don't expect from somebody of 80. You're worried about them falling, and here's someone leaping into the air. Imagine now a woman in her mid-60s competing in the pole vault. Got a picture? Here is Sue Yeomans, a woman in her mid-60s. She's a world champion, British athlete, wonderful woman, competing in the pole vault. Perhaps not quite what you would expect. Sue has been through 2 cancers and always says, and she's very open about them, always says that the thing that keeps her going through her treatments has been her desire to get back to the sport she loves and the community that is like a second family to her, the Masters Athletics community. I can't resist Rose Green. If this is what being 80 is all about, bring it on. Rose Green here, American athlete, she's just become world champion in the women's 400 meters. Look at her smile, look at her shades, her lipstick, her nail varnish, look at her muscles, look at her legs. I mean, she's just incredible. That doesn't happen. That is the result of a lot of training and hard work. But what a joyful, wonderful woman. And this is, now you can see from his bib, an athlete in his 90s competing in the long jump. And again, I think he smashes stereotypes about what we can do when we're 90. He is about to land in the sand. That's what you do when you compete in long jump. And he's going to fall forwards. Falling is meant to be a no-no, but it's not what you see when you watch athletes. And I've got a couple of pictures here, which I call badass pictures. I'm just checking my time. So I love seeing quote unquote elderly women doing things you don't expect them to do. So this is a woman in her 80s, a Swedish athlete, chucking the weight throw. You don't really expect to see elderly ladies throwing a metal ball and chain, but that's what they do in track and field. And it's just wonderful to watch. And I've been really keen to show the full range of emotions that you see in sport because, well, old people have the same emotions that young people do. So they can be fierce and determined and aggressive and competitive and joyful and exhausted and the whole caboodle. So this is Sheila Champion and chucking the javelin. There is so much joy. It's if you want to get, well, if you want to get pictures of joy, go to a sports event. Oh, that's my clock saying I'd better stop. This is a good one to finish on, actually, because, yeah, the woman on the right is actually Sheila Champion's identical twin. And it was a moment while these two competitors were waiting to compete at a big international event that I was photographing. So thank you. Yes, that's it from me.
Thank you, Alex. I was quite mesmerised by your photos there. I think I could let you go on for another 20 minutes at least. Really beautiful photos, and we've got some lovely feedback in the chat as well, if you can see that. So, and I have a question for you, if that's okay, just to kick off our Q&A for the last 15 minutes or so. They're obviously hugely inspiring individuals, really fit and active, really smashing those stereotypes, as you say, and the way that you captured them, as I said before, is really, really beautiful. How do you apply that empowering approach to people in more everyday settings, or, you know, people who perhaps, you know, do have disability or illness, you know, which is obvious, I suppose. How would you go about doing that?
This is for me, is it?
Yes, please. Sorry, yes.
Well, I've actually taken quite a lot of photographs locally in Bristol, where I live, of walking sports group. I mean, my niche is activity and sport, so that's what I do. Yeah. But I do think it's all about discovering whatever somebody's passion is and showing them engaged in it. Giving them agency, making them the subject of the picture. And I can honestly say that taking photos of walking tennis, walking cricket, just walks. I've photographed local walking groups, including some that are for people with impaired mobility. And actually you get the same joy when people come together in a group to do something that they love. And the quality of the pictures are the same, and I've really enjoyed that. You know, I photographed children's sports days, same thing. You know, that it's interchangeable. So for me, it's finding what somebody likes doing. I mean, I guess could be playing the violin or whatever, and just seeing that engagement, because the kind of images that I was trying to disrupt and were the ones where the kind of life force had been drained out of the subjects and they were just passively sort of emptily slumped in chairs.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. And if I could invite the other speakers to put their cameras on. Another question we've had from someone who does befriending work with seniors with dementia. They've asked, should they ask if those individuals want photos in natural settings for themselves? How do they ensure that it's okay for them to take photos in those natural settings? Dora, I wonder if you've got any advice to offer.
Yes, for sure. So I would say that that's mostly an ethical and safeguarding dilemma, and that depends on whether you think the person is able to give consent or is fully aware of what they're opting into. So, for example, in some cases, for younger people, data protection and GDPR laws say that a carer or guardian can give consent on behalf of the younger person, and a similar case might be in play here. So you just need to check if the person's able to give consent and that they're aware of what they're opting into, and this is regardless of how or where you use the photos. And then if you get their consent, it's always good to make sure that the photo represents what the subjects want to be shown, and then again to portray the subjects as human and not just someone with dementia.
Yeah, so not making that the kind of defining feature. Thank you. And Sophie, just on the subject of permissions, we had a question from someone. How do you manage the issue of permissions to use images and photos of people? Do people sign a consent form to make sure they're happy? Are you given permission to use the images in any platform? Could you say a little bit more about consent? I know you touched on it.
Yeah, sure. So we have a model release form that's a template. So if you just Google Alamy model release form, it will probably come up as like one of the first results. And there's a PDF there that you can print out that gives some of the terms of how the image would be used, that the model would be signing away for. So it's pretty much like any commercial use, but there are conditions in that. So it's not for defamatory, libelous or otherwise unlawful uses. But also at the same time, you don't have to have a module release form. So you can also upload images and have images for editorial use only. And what that means is it might just be an image in a newspaper piece or something like that. But really for commercial uses, you want to make sure that there is a module release form. And that's something that we're asking for in this competition as well, so that it can be used for more commercial uses.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really useful. And while we're with you, Sophie, can you share some tips for our photographers that will help their photos appear near the top of search results on your platform or generally?
Yeah. So obviously, you know, there's an algorithm that's at play behind the way that orders the images on the site. But one of the other things I didn't mention about tagging your images, if you can add these things called super tags, which is basically you've added 20 tags, but you can also super tag the 5 most relevant tags. And that will help push them forward on the search. But really, I think the most important thing is just accuracy on the data and not putting things that shouldn't be in there. And that's the way that people will find the images.
And you did talk before about how there was an increase in searches for older age groups. Is there a particular interest in a certain type of older person or a certain setting? Are you able to say anything more about where that demand is coming from?
Yeah, so really it's about showing diversity across, all these areas. So, anything where you might see, different ethnicities in families or, LGBT groups being represented. It really is showing a range because, I think a lot of also the older age group things that have been shown so far is just, white people sort of thing. So anything that or you have access to in that sense is a good thing.
Fantastic, thank you. And so I'm just trying to pop up another question we had, which from Freya, and I don't know, Alex, if you might be a good person to answer this, but what's the best way to tag photos for internal purposes stored using photos on Microsoft, for example? And Freya says she's forever trawling through old folders looking for relevant pictures for their comms. Is there anything with internal storage? I don't know, Alex, whether you've got anything to say on that.
I'm probably the worst person, the last. I don't know if this is, I don't want to stereotype myself as an older photographer, but it's filing and that side of things is, yeah, I do everything by, I use Lightroom, and I do everything by year and event, but trust me, I'm forever scrolling through zillions of photos. So sorry, I'm probably, yeah, pass.
I can assure you it's not, you know, I'm terrible at filing too. I think that happens at any age, doesn't it? Dora or Sophie, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we as an organisation, Aging Better uses ResourceSpace as our digital asset management system, but so we use that to host our image library, but we also use that for our internal comms and internal digital things, but that is a paid service. So if you don't have the budget for that, then perhaps something like Dropbox might be good as a way to file things and store things, but yeah, that's what we use.
Thank you. And another question or a comment from someone attending today asked about how we ensure images of older people could better portray LGBT plus diversity in a more positive and inclusive way. And Dora, I wondered if you'd mind saying a little bit more about this, because I know you're working on something really relevant at the moment.
Yeah, so we're working on, we've taken some photos of older LGBTQ plus people previously, and then we're releasing some more next week. So I think just touching on my earlier point in the presentation about making sure that it's representative. So not just in terms of age, but you know, in terms of race and ethnicity, disability, gender, that kind of thing. And it was also a really great project this time around because we chatted to the people we were working with. We were open to their feedback of how they should be portrayed, and we asked them their feedback of what their experience was like of being in the age positive image library and why they think sort of representation of older LGBTQ plus people is important. So yeah, I would say overall, like be really mindful of being representative, and also work with the people that you're photographing.
Fabulous. Any thoughts on that from the other panelists?
Yeah, I mean, I just add to that's very much what our customers want, is just more diversity. So, you know, it's great to hear the work you're doing on that.
Brilliant. And another question, are there any age positive brands that people can learn from? So I'm going to broaden that out and say either brands or images you've seen as part of campaigns, or photographers or organisations that you think are doing this stuff really well. And could I ask each of the panelists, and Alex, am I able to start with you?
Oh, you keep giving me difficult questions.
I do.
I'm coming across brands that I don't like.
Oh, well, we'll hear about those too. Yeah, it'd be useful to discuss that too.
I've been doing this for 12 years, and when I started, there weren't, I mean, things have changed in the last 12 years hugely. And it's wonderful to see the greater diversity and that brands are picking up on representing older people. But yeah, they so often do them in a, you know, everyone has to be smiling, just as you said earlier on, Dora. And yeah. Sorry, I'm going to pass on that.
No, I mean, it's telling, isn't it, that you don't immediately have at least a couple that you can recall that you think are really doing this well.
No.
Sophie, how about you?
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but one advert I would advise people to go and look up is, I think is it the Virgin one or the BA Airlines? And it's got the I am what I am, which really sort of like represents the way advertisers want to use people in their marketing right now, which shows like a real range of people, you know, because we're all so different. And I would hope that gets translated into the, you know, for those brands that do represent older age groups. So hopefully that's something you'll see more of when people are representing the older age group.
Absolutely, and to agree with Alex as well, I think things have got a lot better, haven't they? But we've seen a real shift on other aspects of diversity. I think age is still the one that's kind of lagging behind. So it will be great, hopefully, to see that over the coming months change. And then Dora, do you have any thoughts, any brands or photographers or organisations that are doing similar work that inspire you?
Yeah, so the Bias Cut is an age-inclusive fashion brand for older women, and they're doing really great work with their like models and photography. And also the Body Shop recently made a change that they removed anti-aging from all of their marketing, which on the face of it is quite a small change, but like I think older women in particular just get bombarded with that word constantly. So I think that that's just a really great positive change for them to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had another comment come in from Patsy saying she'd love to find more images of people involved in speaking up and making decisions alongside the wonderful images showing activities and environments, though appreciating that it's more difficult to show concepts like listening, leading and championing. But it goes back to that idea, doesn't it, of people in empowering situations and this kind of idea of adventure as well. And I think you touched on that, Dora. You know, adventure applies to all ages, and it's a real sort of antidote potentially to this very passive passive approach that we have with photography of older people at the moment. I think we've pretty much covered questions from the panel, so I will just say thank you ever so much to our expert speakers today who've given such wonderful presentations, and I hope everyone listening in has learned a lot and has taken a lot from it. If you could please just take a moment, if you're still on the call, to tell us your thoughts about the webinar. A link to give your feedback will be shared in the chat shortly. And then just a reminder that this webinar, along with all our other events, are available to watch on demand on our YouTube channel, and auto captions will be available in the recording. Don't forget to enter the photography competition. I'm sure that link was shared at some point, but I didn't see it earlier. So if colleagues could post it again, that would be wonderful. Think about signing up for our age-friendly movement, because we would love to have you all on that journey with us. And thank you very much again to the speakers, and goodbye.